rests.
Counting careless in the sky. What a thrilling time to be alive.
Good evening, everybody. This is the Georgia Show. I'm Jake Rowe, Rusty Mansell, and Palmer Toms, and we're here to talk about a variety of topics. But the first and most important, Rusty, is Palmer and I got on yesterday, and we talked about Fran Brown and the fact that he's taking the Syracuse job. But soon after that was over, Georgia got some big news from Ellis Robinson, courtesy of our man Chad Simmons.
Yeah, and I say this, On3 has him number 3 overall player in the country, regardless of position, and ESPN has him the number 1 high school football player in the country. Regardless, he's over every quarterback, he's over every offensive tackle. He is an elite prospect at corner, and that's big news. And you see that picture, and it's kind of ironic or symbolic, whatever you want to say. See Muschamp there, how close he was with him. Obviously, Fran Brown offered him as a freshman in New Jersey, but it's late in the process. I know that he's been through a lot, and visited some schools, and certainly some schools that probably made some really interesting offers to him. But he feels like Georgia's the place to develop him. He feels like Georgia's the place for Kirby Smart, Will Muschamp, and whoever else they bring in. It's just he thinks it's a great spot for him. And kudos to Fran Brown. His life and his family's life changed yesterday. Yeah. That's what you want. That's the whole goal as a coach, to get to this. And what a day for Kirby Smart. Now Kirby Smart can say, hey, not only can you get a job from Georgia, you don't have to be a coordinator to get a job from Georgia.
Sam Pittman could already say it with Sam Pittman.
Sam Pittman was not a coordinator. Shane Beamer at some point, he wasn't a coordinator. So he was at Georgia for a little bit. But the guys hired directly from Georgia, Fran Brown. And I talked about this on the radio in Atlanta today. Buster Faulkner left an offensive coordinator at Southern Miss. He was on the field. He couldn't get an interview where he thought he wanted to. So he left the field, took a big pay cut to come to Georgia, to put Georgia on his resume, to put this conference on his resume, and it paid off for him. So, I don't know where Georgia's going with this. We feel like we've made some notes, on DawgsHQ, but dude, you talking about a feather in the cap for Kirby Smart on the rest of his hires. Anytime a job opening comes up, he's got proof now.
Absolutely. And listen, I understood the folks that were going to be concerned about this Ellis Robinson thing if he didn't reaffirm so quickly, right? I totally understood it, but it just goes to show that while nobody's efforts are foolproof when it comes to recruiting, you're going to lose some guys. Nobody really does it better. I think Nick Saban and company, they do it extremely well, just as good. Ohio State at times, just as good, but nobody puts more effort into surrounding it and the attention to detail. Like, here's the deal. How many times do you talk to a prospect, Rusty, on or off the record, and they say, oh, I talked to all the coaches, or I talked to 6 or 7 different coaches. They're constantly building relationships because Kirby Smart knows this is going to happen. You've got to be ready for this. And I think he does as good a job as look back at that Sam Pittman loss. They kept everybody, Rusty. Cedric Van Pran, Tate Ratledge, Broderick Jones, everybody. It's unbelievable how they do it.
Guarantee you this. I know 100% fact that happened with Tate Ratledge. Sam Pittman called Tate Ratledge the very next day and said, you don't need to go anywhere else. Georgia's the place for you. Why Sam Pittman's trying to assemble a staff at Arkansas and no telling what he was going through in that first 24 hours. He called back to that kid and said, hey, you need to stay at Georgia. Cedric Van Pran, same deal. But I guarantee you yesterday, Fran Brown conversation he had with that family, like, look, Georgia's still Georgia. That's where you need to be. And, and that's the respect for somebody like Fran Brown. But, I've got to know Fran a little bit over the last 2 years, and dude, just great kind of energy, man. You know what I mean? Spent some time with him at the coaches clinic in Athens, and I could tell why people were kind of, he can recruit. And he's a ball coach too. So he's going to step into a program, but he's from there. He's from New Jersey. He's from that Northeast area. You know what I mean? Those cool walks in the morning to the mailbox aren't going to scare him. You know what I mean? So none of us three are cut out for that. But the Fran Brown, those guys have been at Temple, and he's done a really good job, man. He's done a really good job.
It got below 30 this morning, and I was freaking out. Last night we talked with a couple of Fran's defensive backs, and obviously these two guys, Fran works with the corners primarily, and Muschamp works with the safeties and stars, but they all work together, and the fact that Fran has that money mob chain that goes to the top defensive back. Obviously,
that's where I get that from him. I need that.
Yeah, we asked Tyke Smith if it was staying in Athens. He said they hadn't had that conversation yet. But I think when you hear from Tyke and Javon Bullard, those two guys, two leaders in that secondary, the fact that they say that hey, Coach Fran, we're proud of him. We're super excited for him. And, he's coming out to practice today and giving us the same energy and effort that he was before getting this job. And, nothing's changed. And, obviously a lot will depend on the result of Saturday and whether he stays in Athens with the team through the playoffs or, heads up.
I don't think that's going to happen. I think Saturday, just my opinion, Palmer, Saturday's it for him, and that's certainly understandable. You're going to start a program, and unless I'm totally different, but I think this was probably going to be it for him.
Well, and where it's a little
history's told us that the guys stay on, but the transfer portal is a different issue now altogether.
And where it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different, Jake, is that he's a position coach and not a coordinator. In the case of Kirby when he was at Alabama, or Lanning when he was here at Georgia. Those guys were coordinators and in charge of an entire side of the ball. Fran is just a position group.
Yeah. And not only that, he's a position group with a guy helping him out.
Exactly. Yep.
Little Muschamp there. And I'm sure that not a lot will change. But one last thing on Fran, and kind of speaks to what Rusty was talking about. I mentioned it. I spent probably 25 minutes with him in the 2 media day sessions that we had for the college football playoff last year. And there's a seriousness, but a relatability, but it's very real. It's not like you're talking to a guy that just puts on a show for you. I mean, you're going to get the real guy. And every other coach I've ever known like that, they all recruit like gangbusters. Mike Bobo's like that. I mean, John Lilly was like that. It's like you just don't get a lot of fakeness. That you're talking to a real person there. And I think that recruits and coaches and parents definitely value that. Palmer, I'm going to do this like Prime. Cue up my theme music real quick. Do this. Cue up the prize picks and let's talk about them for a second, because we got some picks to make. And I would like to compliment us because we have been able to do this. They've been putting out some Georgia stuff to the point that we've been able to make 6 picks in 2 weeks, and we have got them all. You can, if y'all are at home, you can just scroll in on that little, that money thing up there, and you can see hey, $100 a week. Rusty, we're going to Vegas.
Dude, I'm
as
ready
a staff.
Ready to go right now.
Hey, that wasn't what you were saying right before we got on the show. I don't know if you got a late night in Vegas on you right now. Hey, I said the same thing. I went and cut down a Christmas tree today. All right, so prize picks, Palmer. Let's get into them. You and I discussed one. It was Jalen Milroe against Georgia this week in the SEC championship game. And what was it, 39.5 rushing yards?
It is 38.5 rushing yards, more or less on that. And I know where you're leaning there, Jake.
I like the over. Rusty, what do you think?
Yeah, I like the over. Yeah.
I like Milroe in the 50 to 60 range in this game. Wow. And honestly, I think that's good news for Georgia if he's in the 50, 60 range.
So I'll tell you this one, the one that we got above that, 271.5 passing yards on Carson Beck. It's gone up since we talked about it, Jake. It was in the 250s earlier, 255 maybe. It is now up to 271.5. So, last Saturday against Georgia Tech was the first time this season that he's gone sub 250. He was the only FBS quarterback that was able to say that. I think, the odds makers here at Prize Picks caught on to that and brought that number up a little bit.
Well, I imagine a lot of people were taking the over when
Right.
it was 260, whatever. Rusty, what do you think about that one? It's a lot of passing yards against a good defense.
A lot of passing yards. I think I would probably go under that. My pick. I'd go under that.
Yeah, I see him right in that neighborhood. It's a tough one for me. So if I'm on the fence, I will defer to you guys.
What I will say on that one too is that Alabama just gave up over 200 yards on the ground, and Georgia's been running the ball really well. Yeah. I kind of think that they may run the rock a little bit, and that's going to factor into my pick here as well. We got Dejan Edwards. It's rushing and receiving yards total.
I'll go with that.
He caught the ball out of the backfield a couple times last week, and that's a big part of the Georgia passing game, especially if they're going to have any sort of limitations on a couple of banged up players. I'm sure we'll get to talking about that, but I like Dejan. I like Dejan to go over that to that 79.5 total rushing receiving yardage.
I'm not gonna lie. I think we're going 0 for 3 this week.
Hey, we're due for one of those.
No, that's exactly why. That is exactly why. I 9 for 9 is something else. But hey, Georgia's won 29 in a row, so that's it. Hey, Prize Picks. Listen, get your picks in. Palmer, what is the technical term for somebody who cross picks?
What do you mean?
Like picks across sports? Isn't there like a technical term for that from Prize Picks?
I don't know.
I don't either. All right, get your Prize Picks in. Deposit match up to $100 on your first deposit with the promo code DAWGS. Is that right? DAWGS.
Promo code DAWGS, DAWGS. They'll match up your first deposit up to $100. And yeah, so with the things you can't go all Georgia. You got to get 2 teams in there. That caught us the first time that we were in here messing around with it a little bit, but you can keep it all on the SEC championship game. Get Georgia, get Alabama. If you want to, get out and you want to get in on, they've got, college basketball. They've got an NBA, NFL. They've even got Georgia, some numbers and odds set for Georgia tonight against Florida State. If you want to get in there quick, but Prize Picks, the place to be.
All right, let's get into some SEC championship game talk. And I guess the logical place is to start with a little bit of injury. A little bit of injury talk. Georgia's got 4 or 5 guys banged up, mainly on the offensive side of the ball. Brock Bowers, Tate Ratledge, Lab McConkey, Rara Thomas. Without basically giving away full reports that were taken over at DawgsHQ, Rusty, what are we thinking here?
Big game. Got to push through, man. You gotta give. If you're 70% or 80%, like this is it don't get much bigger than this. And I think people understand, the winner of this game, and just say if Alabama were to win and were to get in, they would be very dangerous in the 4-team playoff. Obviously, Georgia has that respect from anybody if they're in. But you got to go this week. I'll say this: I don't know that Georgia will play a tougher game, a tougher opponent the rest of the year than they will Saturday.
The only one, in my opinion, is Oregon. That's the only one, in my opinion, that might be that might give them more problems. Yeah, I'm with you on that. And listen, I'm not saying Kirby Smart's going to go full Bud Kilmer and start jamming needles into kids or anything like that. That ain't going to happen. But these guys, man, listen, they're going to have to tie Brock Bowers to something, I would imagine, to keep him off the field. They're going to have to probably put him in a Hannibal Lecter type deal to keep him out of there. Lab McConkey probably the same way.
Brock Bowers didn't have surgery to sit out Saturday.
That's true.
He didn't have, like that dude. We talked about he could have tapped out and still been a first rounder. And
that's right. Yeah, he didn't go under. He didn't go under anesthesia to sit out on Saturday. That's very true. Yeah, I mean, I think right now the feeling is that, if I had to say today, I'd say that all 4 of those guys give it a go. Don't know if they'll finish the game. Don't know if they'll have huge impacts on the game. I think all 4 of those guys will give it a go and get after it. Palmer, let me ask you this, man. Who do you think is, if you had to pick one other than Bowers, Is it just Ladd for sure, or how do you look at it?
Of the banged up guys?
Yeah, obviously Brock is number one.
Yeah. In terms of likelihood to play, or
if you had to pick one
that
if you had to pick one that Georgia needed the most.
Yeah, I do think it's McConkey. And obviously they've had Dylan Bell step up recently. That Tennessee game and that Georgia Tech game had some good plays there. But to have a second weapon in the passing game and one that is a proven type player there, consistently doing it's Ladd, because you look at if you're choosing between those two receivers, him and Rah, you'd take Ladd over him.
Sure.
And then the offensive line, I think has been, outstanding with or without Tate Ratledge. And you can very easily get by that with the depth that Georgia has built up there. Micah Morris and Dylan Fairchild and Xavier Truss capable of playing guard. You've got enough guys on the interior there that you feel really comfortable with. So of those four, obviously you're choosing Brock Bowers to suit up and give it a go. But if you got to go number two, it's going to be Ladd McConkey for me.
I'm extremely disappointed in a former offensive lineman that you did not pick the War Daddy right there. I totally agree with you, but to play devil's advocate here, I think you look at it and you're like, okay, if you could just automatically surge one of them to full strength, I don't know, man. I do think Tate Ratledge is a very valuable piece in a game like this, because that calming force on the offensive line, all of that experience, he is a War Daddy. He's played a lot of big football at that right guard position. I think I would still take Ladd, but I do think it's a little bit of a closer battle there, because I do think Tate's better than Xavier Truss at that position. Who, listen, he's the whipping boy for the fan base, but I don't know anybody that's been more important for Georgia this season. He has played 4 out of 5 positions on the offensive line and played them all respectably. So it's just, again, he's not a superstar or anything, but the way he has been I don't want to call him an Iron Man. The way he's been a jack of all trades, a Swiss Army knife, has just been
five tool, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I will say, if we're including the defensive guys in there, it's Jamon Dumas-Johnson.
Yeah, I could.
Yeah, and you could make a case that Julian Humphrey could be more important than Ladd too. Obviously with the speed that Alabama's got at receiver, and the way that they're able to use Julian as a rotational guy.
I still wouldn't put either one above Ladd, I don't think.
Yeah, I would put Jamon above Ladd, just because of the way that Alabama's been running the ball and the physicality that it's going to take to play against Jalen Milroe. I don't know that Jamon is the fastest guy that you want spying the quarterback necessarily, but I do think that he brings a physical presence to that defense when he's out there. And not that I'm saying that there's any chance that he gives it a go this Saturday.
Right.
Very doubtful. You're looking at CJ Allen and Railan Wilson to step up there. And, we see the comment here about Smile and what's he dealing with. Kirby said he's banged up. Kirby said he was banged up after the Georgia Tech game, and that he's, but everyone is at this time of year. And I think that, if he was not in there late in that game, Jake, you pointed out to me that Jalen Walker was in there, playing some true inside linebacker. I think it's more because they're trying to get those other guys some reps instead of, and knowing that they had that game, in control pretty much, and knew that they could probably rest Smile a little bit with what's ahead this week.
All right, now let shift our focus on this Alabama game real quick to we'll talk about this on our game day show later on in the week. It'll be on Saturday morning, 7:00. But Rusty, when you look at Alabama, where do you think Georgia maybe has an edge? Where do you think Georgia can attack and maybe they're vulnerable a little bit?
Well, I think the linebackers are a spot that Alabama has. It's usually, you usually deal with them. You think, man, they got a couple of first rounders. They got a first rounder in there. They for whatever reason kind of taken a step back, in my opinion, at linebacker. And the speed of them there would be can they match up with Beck? Can they match up with Dajon Edwards out of the backfield? Can they match up with Dylan Bell out of the backfield? That's not the most I would say the most important, but I think that's one that's not getting mentioned enough. I think Georgia can definitely right now. I would take Brock Bowers and Oscar Delp and Dejan Edwards against their inside linebackers in space. And listen, for as much as we talk about Caleb Downs, I think Caleb Downs was the #1 player in the state of Georgia last year. This kid's a super freak. They're moving him. They've been playing him more at star position, I think, to help support those guys, Jake, to get him closer to the box. So you might see Caleb Downs versus Brock Bowers, and that's going to be 2 first-rounders. Now, Brock Bowers, if he's 100, if Brock Bowers is 90%, he's a problem for anybody. I don't care who you are. He's just so big and fast. So I'm interested to see how Alabama plays Brock Bowers. But you see last week, they move Caleb Downs into that star position, similar to what Tyke Smith plays for Georgia. So to me, that means I think they're trying to get some support up in that box and around a little closer to the line of scrimmage.
And he's a really good athlete. Caleb Downs is a fantastic athlete, but not just Brock Bowers. Dominic Lovett, kind of a seasoned route runner, a very quick guy, maybe get some quick separation there against a guy that hasn't played a lot. I mean, I know Auburn, Auburn last week against Auburn, Deontay Lawson, one of Alabama's inside linebackers, was able to return and play. Don't think they would say anybody in that run defense played particularly well, but I would say that's a matchup too. The one area I think they are is maybe I know the offensive line has gotten better as the year has gone on, but I look at it and you combine kind of that Georgia Tech game and kind of the focus that I'm sure Georgia's going to come out and play with after kind of playing unfocused, uninspired football there on the interior against Tech. I think that's an area that Georgia needs to win and can exploit a little bit. I mean, I'm not saying Alabama's not good. They're very good. They're very big. They're also very young. And I think that's an area. Palmer, do you have anything to add there in terms of where you think Georgia may have an edge in this game?
Yeah, overall, I mean,
Palmer says Georgia's going to lose.
Yeah. No, overall, the way that I've kind of looked at this game is it's going to be one of, who can get more stops. And I think, obviously when, people are doing the quarterback comparisons, running back, offensive line, yada, 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 like it doesn't matter if Carson Beck is a better quarterback than Jalen Milroe. What matters is that Carson Beck and this Georgia offense are better than that Alabama defense as a whole. And, ultimately I think that Georgia is able to get the separation between Georgia's offense and Alabama's defense is wider than that of Alabama's offense and Georgia's defense. I think Georgia's offense is, if you put Georgia's offense and Alabama's defense out on the field 10 times, Georgia's offense is going to score 7 or 8 of them. Really the only thing that has stopped them as of late has been themselves, turnovers and things like that. I think if you're looking at the Alabama offense and the Georgia defense, I think it's about a coin toss, 50-50. But I like, scoring 80% of the time better than I do scoring 50% of the time. And ultimately that's where I think that Georgia has an overall edge in this game. Because these 2 teams are so talented at single specific position groups, I don't know that there's a huge edge anywhere. But, as a whole unit, I think, and I completely agree with both of y'all where y'all have talked about those positions. But I think as a whole, Georgia's defense and compared to Alabama's offense has a bigger advantage than the flip side of things.
Yeah, no, 100%. Basically, Palmer's saying that if Georgia scores more points than Alabama.
Yep, Dylan Brooks is right here. The team that scores more will win.
Hey, Palmer, that's the best analysis I've heard. It's 100% correct. Something else that is also the best and correct, and if you want to come correct, you will get one of these. Listen, I know none of you guys aren't Rusty Mansell. You don't have the stomach to wait 25 more days to do your Christmas shopping. Okay. Cause Rusty's got 25 more days until he's even going to get going.
I hadn't even thought about it.
I understand. I understand. I know I've been around a long time, Rusty, and I know December 24th is the only time Rusty Mansell needs to be out of pocket during Christmas season.
That's right.
Listen, if you're looking for the perfect gift for the Georgia fan in your life, that has almost everything. They don't have everything because they don't have this. You need to check out these Georgia National Championship timepieces at Axia, because Axia Time has got it going on. I got one of these bad boys sitting right here on my desk. I'm not going to do an unboxing because it's very involved. I showed it to Palmer.
It is very involved. That is a great way of putting it.
That is very involved to get that thing out. But listen, it comes with all sorts of gadgets and gizmos and gears. It's beautiful. It is one of the coolest things I've ever had a chance. Listen, I've held some watches. I've never held one quite like this. I've never held a timepiece quite like this one. These are heirloom quality, Swiss-made mechanical watches. The technology in these things has been around for hundreds of years, but this is just one of those that's been perfected. These are available for men and women. They're a perfect way to celebrate this historic back-to-back national championship victories. Come check out these timepieces at Axia Time, AXIA time.com. That's axiatime.com. And if you're looking for something even just a little bit more special, Axia has teamed up with the University of Georgia and the Classic City Collectives to basically support the student athletes, not basically for sure support the student athletes with these limited edition Kirby Smart autograph collection. If you get one of these, it will contribute to the student athletes at Georgia who are partnered with Axia Time and the Classic City Collective, with the majority of the proceeds actually going there. So check it out. There's no better way. It's the perfect way to commemorate these back-to-back national championships. And go check them out at axiatime.com, AXIA time.com. Watches that tell a lot more than time. All right, we are chopping wood. We are chopping some wood. I was sawing wood earlier today, but we're going to chop some wood. And I wish I was chopping instead of sawing, but whatever. Palmer, what do you got?
Man, throwing me on the spot just right after
Palmer, what do you got?
Ads. Now I we talked about this a little bit, with Georgia's linebackers and the injury situation and Jamon being out in this Alabama run game. I am looking at, chopping wood about CJ Allen and Railan Wilson and looking at those two guys as, potential difference makers on Saturday. Lot of pressure is going to be put on them. This is the biggest stage they've played in. But Kirby said this week, he said, look, they grew up and they grew up fast, because you're talking about, the opponents that they've played these last 3 games: Ole Miss, Tennessee, Georgia Tech, 3 very different styles, 3 very physical games, 3 very important games for Georgia. And those guys were thrown into the fire with them. So, they've handled it well. CJ Allen's won 2 out of the 3 SEC Freshman of the Week honors in that time. I think he finished tied for the team high in tackles this past Saturday, had the lead against Ole Miss. So he has certainly played his part. Railan Wilson has, had not quite as, been statistically as strong as Allen, but, is a, freak of nature himself. I'm looking at those guys to have a big game, on Saturday, and, think that it's important that they do, because this Alabama run game is something else, especially with, Jalen Milroe as a Lamar-like guy, as Kirby described him.
A better version of Lamar, a Madden better version of Lamar Jackson.
I don't know that I don't think he said better version of Lamar.
That's what I heard.
He described, he compared him to Lamar Jackson, and that's an NFL MVP.
Apparently, we got some rascals out there taking offense to him saying that that Milroe's just different than Tim Tebow. So I don't know. It's folks. All right, Rusty, what you got?
Be short and sweet. Chop wood for 2 people that you really just know they're going to show up. You just have 2 people that you can count on, 2 people that play the game the right way, 2 people that are physical, 2 people that love football. You just know that Saturday these guys are going to make a lot of plays, and that's Malachi Starks and Javon Bullard. I mean, these guys. I mean, Bull covered him. Come out of high school, and they just make plays, man. And I think people take for granted how good of tacklers they are, And when you go back and look at Eric Singleton from Georgia Tech, and I don't know if many people know, but I think Eric Singleton ran the second fastest 100 meters in the country last year in high
First
school.
in Georgia, right?
First in Georgia. Yeah, I think he ran 10.22, I think. He ran 10.22 in high school.
I ran 10.22 in the 40.
And this man got loose on Georgia, and Malachi Starks walked him down.
He did.
He stopped it. He stopped it and saved the touchdown. So
I told Palmer, I said he's gone, and I said nope, Malachi's going to get him.
dude,
So-
I mean, he was.
And Malachi had 2 tackles like that. One wasn't quite as chase down, but if he hadn't made it on, I can't remember who was carrying the ball for Tech, but it was the play that Bullard went down and got the wind knocked out of him.
Yeah.
If Malachi doesn't make that tackle, it could be 6 as well.
I just think that people, I don't know that people take them for granted. You just don't talk about them much because they make plays and they make every play. And if you catch a ball at 7 yards, you're getting tackled at 7 yards. And it's just those guys they're going to be important on Saturday. And because I'll tell you this, Alabama is going to run their quarterback and they're going to take a lot of chunk shots. And they're going to throw that thing deep, man. So those two guys are going to be in coverage, going to be deep. Got to make plays.
Yep, and at the risk of leaving Kamari Lassiter and Dalen Everett out, I'm going to single out another group on the defense, and it's the 3 amigos mainly up front, the 3 seniors on that defensive line. And listen, we've seen Warren Brinson do stuff, and we've seen Nazir Stackhouse do stuff, and we've seen Zion Logue make plays as well. Listen, this is their time, in my opinion, because when you look, I was looking back at the Alabama-Texas game earlier today, and I know that Alabama's a little bit of a different team now. I'm not saying they're the same team, and this is just going to work. But, man, the way Alabama or the way Texas took care of Alabama on the interior, and it wasn't just like, swim movement. There was nothing finesse about it. They struck blockers. They reset the line of scrimmage. They kind of pushed them around. Listen, these are grown dudes for Georgia. These are big men. They've been around a long time. And you put those 3 with Jordan Hall, with Christian Miller, Michael Williams, Tyron Ingram Dawkins, and Tramel Walther. Listen, that's a battle. I know I talked about it a minute ago. It's a battle Georgia really needs to win. And it's a battle that if Georgia wins, it will not lose. It will not lose on the scoreboard. I mean, I firmly believe that, and I think it starts with those 3. And I don't think we've seen any of those 3 play the best football. They really just in the last year or 2 started to play super high. I mean, really high number of snaps, especially in Nazir Stackhouse. You didn't see this much from Brinson and Logue last year, but we're just now starting to see them there. I think they're starting to get healthy. Brinson was flashing last week. I expect a lot from that group this week against Alabama. Folks, that's all we got tonight. That's all we've got. We're done. We're as Tony Schiavone would say, we are desperately out of time. And keep in mind we have got the pregame show, the game day show, whatever you want to call it. Palmer calls it something. I may call it different.
I don't know what I call it.
Yeah, me neither. But we've got the pregame game day show Saturday morning, 7:00. Tune into that. We'll be with you after the game. We will be with you next Sunday and next Wednesday as well. No rest for the weary around here. Transfer portal's opening up. It's about to get wild. Come see us over at DawgsHQ. We'd love to have you. And everybody take care.